If you are watching us live, don't forget to comment and share, and we'll go through your comments and have some conversation related to all this that we're going to talk about today. This is a tie-in to my live video last week, which was called Happiness Paradox. And today, we're going to continue to talk about that happiness paradox. And last week, we talked about how often we tend to struggle against ourselves and how thoughts can get in the way and things like that. We'll go a little bit more in depth to that today. But as you come on, if you're watching us live, make sure you share, comment, and if you haven't already, there's a spot where you can join our public group, so you can always see our announcements and things going on, and you can check that out. Basically, I'm going to start off by talking about martial arts. I'm going to start off talking about any martial art, but really the way we approach martial arts in Peaceful Warriors. When you're a beginner, a lot of the things are designed to help build the foundation of the body. They're designed to be a struggle and to introduce a person to their own character and their own level of perseverance and things like that. But as we start getting really into technique and we start working a lot on technique, it's a shift. It's a different thing. When we're working on just pure technique, the goal is to become as efficient as possible so that we have no wasted energy but are getting the absolute most out of every movement and motion that we make. So there's no wasted energy, right? This is also the case in parkour and tricking, right? You're not going to be able to do the complex tricks until you can learn to release and use only the energy in only the areas and places and times that it's exactly necessary. Throwing anything extra into it can not only be a waste of energy, but in parkour and tricking, it can actually be dangerous. It can make you over-rotate. I know I've blown out my knee from over-rotating an aerial before, and things along those lines. Now, that's all physically, right? But we really believe it should be mentally as well. So when students get up to our advanced strengths and black belts, we really, in particular, now we start off, we do this in beginners as well, but we get more and more in depth into as time goes on to the concept of making our physical motions more efficient while also making our mental energies work more efficiently and striving to not waste too much mental energy on things that we can't control and things that we can't help anyway. Because honestly, our initial reactions to things tend to be the most inefficient, right? The first time I ever try to have someone hold a middle stance or a horse stance in martial arts, they'll have a tendency to tense their entire core, to tense every muscle in their legs, and that just uses energy so much faster than focusing on only using the hip muscles necessary to hold that position and relaxing all the rest of the muscles, which is a lot more of an efficient way to do it, right? And that's the same thing we talk about mentally. We want to try to get to a point of being efficient, but sometimes our initial reactions aren't. So for example, I was so grateful at all the awesome reviews we've got in the past week or two, but there was one that came through that was very, very negative, and it wasn't really so much directed at us. This guy had come to one class. There were some family issues going on at the time and stuff. I know he was going through a lot of things, and basically got a little short with our staff and was ultimately had to be asked to leave. Later on this past week, left a big review. This guy, had run his own little tiny studio for a time and basically didn't like the way we were doing things and stuff like that. So my initial gut reaction, the same reaction I'd had years ago before I started martial arts training, was who does this guy think he is? What's he going on in this? He watched one thing, he didn't like the warm-ups, he yelled at staff, and there was this whole thing, right? And I wanted to be frustrated and angry about it, but I instantly realized that was going to be a waste of energy, right? What's the point in being frustrated and angry about it? It's his opinion. He's entitled to whatever his opinion is, right? So I decided to practice our de-escalation tactics instead and tried to use courteous responses and replies and say, look, I understand the family situation. I understand that you didn't like the classes, and that's fine. And you can do what you do in your own studio and stuff like that. I understand that you didn't like the situation, and he kept getting more and more frustrated with his replies, and that's when I realized I could have fallen into that same trap, right? If I'd have followed my initial reaction, I could have fallen into the same trap they did, which was basically getting more and more frustrated about it and carrying that weight, that mental burden with me about, how I feel about that particular thing, and it would have weighed on me for a time. But I chose not to go with that initial reaction. And I chose instead to practice what we preach and talk about de-escalation and try to come from more of a place of kindness. And I found that I used so much less mental energy. There was so much less baggage. And once that was done, once that response was done, I didn't carry it with me anymore. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And by releasing that baggage, it allows room for joy and happiness, right? Which kind of takes me to one of the points I wanted to make today. You don't have to have a reason to be happy. What you really need is a reason to not be anything else, right? So that was where I started feeling happiness after that moment when it came to that review and everything. Was I realized that I didn't have a need to carry that opinion around with me. I didn't have a need to carry that baggage. I didn't have a need to let it bother me. And by being able to let all that go, all I was left with is being happy at the concept that I'd always wanted a bad review. I don't know if you guys know this. I'd always wanted a bad review. I'd always heard that having too many good reviews it made you look not real, like made it look fake, and we always had great reviews, and I guess we finally got our bad one, and I decided to see it in a positive way and be like, hey, we finally got that bad review we were looking for. Now we look realistic, now people can see that we're actually just human. And and I tried to listen to that guy's review. He said he didn't like the warm-ups. I tried to listen to that and be like, okay, let's see what we don't like about him. But some people get so stuck in complaining that they don't take the teachable moments, right? I prefer to teach rather than complain. If there's something that I don't like or something I feel like I can help you learn how to do better, then I'm going to be nice to you, and I'm going to try to pass on my knowledge. I'm going to try to do that, right? Be a good teammate about it. Some people don't like to do that. Some people look at that and just want to yell at you and assume you know less than they do, and then just put you down and put you under instead of teaching, right? Don't yell at me, teach me. I am very teachable. I can learn from just about anybody. Unhappy people try to make others unhappy. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Mr. Fisher. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But you don't need a reason to be happy. You don't have to have a reason to chase happiness. If you try to chase happiness in the next thing, and this is what we talked about in the last happiness paradox video, if you get stuck in chasing happiness in the next thing or in the weekend or whatever it is, then you'll start creating expectations, which are really just reasons to end up being unhappy or disappointed with the moment. You don't need to have a reason, a thing, a place, or a time to be happy. You just need a reason to let go of all the rest of it, which is very, very difficult. I'm not going to say that that's easy. But if you can let go of doubts and let go of the fears and let go of the things that have happened and let go of worrying about how this thing that happened in the past is going to come out or how this thing might happen in the future, if you can let go of all that, then all you have left is your experience in the moment right now. And if you're focused on your experience in the moment right now, you're more likely to choose happiness. I say choose happiness, it's just all that's left, right? Like I said, I'm not saying that's easy, but like, all the other things that we hold on to other than happiness are often so painful that should be reason enough to let them go, in my opinion, right? Now, kids are much better about this than we are, and that's why I have Axel here, right? So I'm trying to describe this in ways that make sense, but with kids, they feel their feeling and then they move on, right? Kids are awesome at that. They feel their feeling, they move on, and they don't tend to hold on to it or carry it as much. I mean, unless they're heavily traumatized. They don't tend to carry it with them as much. They tend to let it go and be from one moment to the next. So Axel, in any given moment, anything you're doing, do you typically find yourself thinking about what if this happens or what about this thing that happened, or do you typically just find yourself thinking about what it feels like to do what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great wise words from the young man. Yeah. Yeah, what?
I do find myself thinking about what happens when I'm doing something else.
Right. You find yourself thinking about stuff like that. But when you're having fun and you're playing, are you thinking about what may happen in the future or what just happened in the past? No, you're just enjoying yourself, right? Yeah. You're enjoying what it feels like. You're enjoying the experience. And that's what I'm trying to talk about, right? That's where happiness is found. Learning to enjoy whatever it is you're doing by being in that moment, in that experience, not worrying too much about the future or the past. That's where we can end up falling into depression and anxiety and things along those lines, thinking about too much about the past, thinking too much about the future. So the idea is, like, when you're playing, don't you think less?
Yeah.
And instead you focus on the experience. You focus on the feeling and what it feels like, right? And this way you can enjoy any given thing in any given moment if you put a little less focus on the thoughts. I mean, I'm not saying don't have them or try to push them away, because they're always going to come back. What I'm saying is, like I said in the last video, in the Happiness Paradox video, if you separate yourself from those thoughts, if you can find a way to separate yourself from those thoughts, it creates an emotional detachment to them. And if you can get that emotional detachment to those thoughts, you'll find yourself putting less focus on the thoughts and then making it easier for you to turn your focus onto how you're feeling right now and the experience you're having right now. And that's a different type of physical body wisdom awareness, right? And if you have that kind of awareness, which costs nothing, then you can learn to just sit and experience a feeling and enjoy that feeling. And you no longer, need to pay anything to be entertaining, right? Things along those lines. If you can learn to enjoy less, it's another thing about happiness, right? Let's talk about when it relates to money, right? Happiness is easier when you have enough money to satisfy your desires. Now, I've been homeless, and I know that there are places that you can have the simplest desires out there and still not have enough money to meet that. I've been there before, and that's a really tough, dark spot to be, right? But if you have enough money to satisfy your desires, that's what it takes to feel rich. So if you have a lot of desires, you're going to need a lot more money to feel rich. So there's really just two ways. There's two ways that you can become rich, right? One is you can have all your desires and you can try to acquire as much as possible and get as much money as possible and keep doing this, that, and the other. That's the one I don't really choose. It's a lot of hard work. The other way to get rich and feel good is to simply simplify your life and bring it down into simple things that cost nothing or cost less or cost very little, and learn to be happy in the simple life. And then as long as that simple life costs less than the money that you make, well, then it's pretty easy to feel rich. If you have no desire for things that cost a whole lot of money, but instead you learn to just hold your desires for experiences, desire feelings, desire things like that, instead of things and materials and things along those lines, then that's another way that you can feel rich. I'm not saying one is wrong, right? Either way is fine. But, it's easier to be happy when you have enough money to satisfy your desires. If you have a ton of desires, you're going to need a ton of money to be happy. If you live a very simple life and you have very few desires, most of your desires are spend time with my family, make my family happy, enjoy the experiences of nature, enjoy walking, enjoy things like that, then and you can make enough money for a roof over your head, and clothes and food, then cool, right? You can be super happy with very little. So, thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Fisher, only thing in life you can truly control is your attitude. That's right. I can push you and your body control is gone. You choose to be mad, sad, happy, etc. That's right. So many of us are so reactive, right? I can walk up to most people and start poking them in the ribs, and they're going to tell me to stop, and they're going to get agitated. They're going to get irritated in just a few seconds, and they're going to be frustrated. That means I have the control to make you frustrated, right?
Yeah.
I can walk up to 99% of people out there and throw out an insult and make them angry. Right? That means I have control over their anger. If you're one of those people that's reactive to the things around you and the external forces change how you feel inside, and you let those external forces change how you feel inside, then you don't really have control over yourself. You're allowing everybody else to control your emotions and make you feel the way they want you to feel for their own kicks, right? Just because it's amusing to them. And we've all seen and experienced this in bullying in schools and things like that. But you can learn to choose to respond a little differently instead of just reacting emotionally. But that happens when you take time to practice the control of your focus and learn to take your focus away from the reactions, away from the thoughts, or separate from the thoughts and separate it from the reactions, so that you can gain a little bit more control over what you choose to do. If you can manage to mentally separate yourself from your thoughts, then you can also manage to separate yourself from the emotions. And those initial responses to get angry are still there, but they feel different. They feel detached from you, and you feel a greater sense of control in your ability to choose how you respond to that situation. You can't control, like I said in Happiness Paradox 1, you cannot control the outcome of anything. If you think you can, you're really just trying to guess at the algorithms of life, right? You really can't control the outcomes of anything. The only thing that you can control is what you put into it, what you choose to put into it, and the intention and the feeling that you choose to put into it. That you can control. So you may not always be able to control what you have to do. You may not always be able to control the output. You really can't always control the output, but you can control what you put in, and you can control how you feel about putting that in. I can do the same task 2 days in a row and one day feel miserable about it, like I don't want to do it, and the next day convince myself that this is fun and I'm having a good time doing it because I'm enjoying this experience of the moment. And I can tell you right now, the time that I didn't want to do it, I'm going to perform far worse than the time when I decided that I was going to do it and I was going to enjoy it and enjoy the experience of it, right? So that's free though. It's free to learn how to control your mind. All it takes is training and time to learn how to control your focus. And like I say, it's not about getting rid of negative thoughts and replacing them with positive ones all the time. It's not about that. Because if you constantly push away negative thoughts and negative feelings, then all you're really doing is bottling them up. They're going to come back around with full force, either in your head or in your dreams or something. They're going to come back around. I'm not talking about pushing thoughts away. I'm talking about learning to separate you from your thoughts as someone who is watching your thoughts, who realizes your thoughts are not real. They're just parts of your brain, which is a tool, and you begin to watch them instead of experience the thoughts. If you learn to watch the thoughts instead of experience them, it frees up your focus to actually experience real life instead of being stuck in the experience of your thoughts at all times, right? And this can be very difficult, and it's a bit paradoxical, I know, but this is what I've always found to be the keys to when I feel really, really good. And I can't do this all the time. It's not something I maintain all the time, but it's something that I practice. I feel like it's the pinnacle of my practice in martial arts, not just physical control of only using the muscles necessary when necessary to get the best outcome, but also, and sensitivity control, but also mental control, and being able to take control of my brain as a tool rather than allowing my brain and emotions to control me. And when I do get on that for a couple of weeks and I'm there, it's usually like an awesome couple of weeks. It's usually a great time. So happiness doesn't have to come from looking for more and more things to enjoy. Happiness can come from learning to enjoy less and enjoy the experience like a child enjoys the experience of playing. But if you can learn to tap into that inner child and everything that you do, everything that you have to do, your job, your conversations, then it's a lot easier. Another thing that makes it easier to not let other people control you is like, I kind of like to approach other people as if they're me, but different. Like they're me, but without my experiences and thoughts and things like that. They have their own set of experiences and thoughts, but other than that, they're just like me. They feel emotions, they feel things, they do that. And when I look at people that way, it's easier for me to not get so frustrated with them if they say something I don't like that guy that left us a bad review and all that. I get where he's coming from. I mean, he had a martial arts studio, an MMA school. We just went through a pandemic, right? He had far fewer students and far fewer, smaller of a foundation than we did. He's in a bad way. I'd be frustrated, right? There's a lot of family things going on. I would be in a bad place too. I would probably want to lash out too. And by recognizing that, it's easier for me to not be mad about it. It's easier for me to not be mad about him lashing out, and instead I kind of understand it. And I can more or less feel for him, like in that current situation. But I can still also keep that separation from my thoughts and realize that maybe I don't feel like he's going the right way about it, but he'll figure that out one day. Hopefully he figures that out one day and learns to improve his life by taking real control over his thoughts and brain instead of allowing his brain to control him, which is something I've always found very, very important. So yeah, you can't control everything that happens in your life, but you can certainly control your attitude about it. But it takes work. It takes a lot of work. Now, I've been someone that's been diagnosed with depressive anxiety disorders, ADHD, and several things like that. So I sometimes struggle with a lot of this stuff as well. My brain just goes off on its own. And that's what I mean is I used to try to stop it. I used to try to stop my brain, and that was just fighting the tool. And that did me no good. That just drug me farther into the stream. What I learned over time is it's not about fighting the train of thought. Like I said a minute ago, it's not about fighting the thoughts. It's about separating from them. It's about seeing them and watching them instead of experiencing the thoughts. Experience life, not the thoughts your brain puts out there. And what I've learned through doing that with an anxiety disorder is that it didn't stop the anxiety, but it changed what the anxiety felt like. I've told people early on that one of my early coping mechanisms for the anxiety disorder was to convince myself that I was excited. Well, here's how that works. I've talked about how it's the same chemical, right? That to feel anxious and excited uses the same chemical. You want to know what the difference is? Anxiety without doubt is excitement. Anxiety without the doubts of the bad part that could happen, or the bad outcome that could happen, or the doubting yourself and your own abilities. Anxiety without doubt is excitement, right? It feels different. It feels, that like that same feeling of welling up in the chest and the heart pounding and the cold sweats and all that. But instead of being like a painful, terrifying feeling, without doubt, it becomes more of a tickling, buzzing sort of excitement, right? It becomes almost a sensation that's almost enjoyable. But you have to be able to release doubt, right? You don't have to have a reason to be happy. You just have to have a reason to let go of everything else. And the easiest reason to do that is understanding that you can't control the outcome. You can't control that. So it's really not worth worrying about. Understanding that you are not just your thoughts. You do not have to experience everything your thoughts say. You can separate yourself from that and watch your thoughts and watch your emotions and look for that part of you that is not the thoughts themselves, but is the thing that watches the thoughts. So when you think of yourself that way, it becomes much, much easier to separate yourself from those things, right? So I had Axel on here with me. I meant to give you some more time to talk, and I didn't really give you a chance, bud. So talking about happiness, this kind of stuff that I'm talking about, is there anything that I said that just clicks with you, just makes a lot of sense? That you were just kind of like, wow, that's kind of how I feel. That's kind of how I manage things.
Yeah. A part of what you were saying made sense to me.
Well, which part? Separating from your thoughts, enjoying less, so that you didn't need as much, the 2 ways to be rich. Don't have to have a reason to be happy.
Don't have a reason to be happy.
You tend to be happy a lot. I'm jealous of you sometimes. Like, you appear to be happy quite often. And very content and satisfied. What's your secret to that?
I can't explain how I really do that.
When you're feeling that way, when you're feeling real happy, are you paying very much attention to your thoughts, or are your thoughts, about the past or future when you're happy, or are you more just in the moment?
I'm just in the moment.
Right, so when you're teaching, you help out some. I say you're helping out in the Tigers class with the young ones, and you're helping someone learn something, and you're kind of excited and happy about it, and they're excited and happy. What are you thinking about in those moments? Are you thinking about what you're going to have for dinner?
No.
Are you thinking about something bad that happened that you got in trouble for yesterday?
No, I'm thinking about right then.
And how they feel, and how you feel. Focusing on the experience is exactly what I'm talking about. That's the key. Learning to focus on the experience of life. Learning how to walk outside and feel the wind against your skin and focus purely on that feeling and how good it feels. Or the grass on your feet. Or, I hate the cold. I don't like feeling cold. But when I'm in the zone like this, zenned out like this, I can walk out on a cold day and not like it, but still enjoy the experience, just because I can pay attention to the feeling on my skin. I can pay attention to how it feels, and instead of trying to fight it or run away from it, accept it. Have patience and just accept it. And that experience can, yes, be something that's a little bit painful or I don't really like that much, but I can still enjoy the experience even if I don't like it, because when you focus on that experience and the feeling and the external feeling and all that, it's like free entertainment, right? And contentment is not entertainment. A good story isn't just always happy, right? There's some pain in it. There's some struggle in it. And if you can learn to see the pain and struggle as a part of your big story that makes it interesting, and learn to take that experience and focus on just the feeling of what it feels like, that's free entertainment. If you can be happy to just experience what things feel like right now, absolutely free entertainment. So that was most of what I wanted to talk about. I've given a couple of recaps already, but this has to do with martial arts. It has to do a lot with martial arts. Like I said, we learn how to build strength and a strong foundation. And when we get into technique, we learn the technique first, and then we learn how to refine the technique and make it more efficient. I don't just necessarily mean quicker, but quickness comes with efficiency, where we're only using the muscle necessary. When we do the technique right, the technique throws itself, right? We talk about this all the time. When you throw a technique correctly, the technique throws itself, and you only need the muscle in one specific point, one specific moment, like the moment of contact. And you only need specific muscles, not all the muscles in a particular area. You don't have to tense the whole area, you just need one muscle, right? Same way when we're holding stances. There's no need to tense your entire legs to hold a middle stance, to hold a low middle stance. You really just need to tense the front of the hip right here, the flexors, right? You don't need the hamstrings and the calves tensed and everything. That's just wasted energy. Well, the same thing on this. If we allow ourselves to think that we are our thoughts, then we start to put all of our emotional energy and all of who we are into our thoughts. And many of those thoughts are not reality, and many of those thoughts never come to fruition. So are we really using our energy, mental energy, wisely, or are we just burning it on whatever our brain throws in front of us? Our brain is designed to keep throwing thoughts in front of us. It's designed to keep throwing relative information to what's around us in front of us. That's what it's designed to do. But if we start experiencing that alone as if that's us in our own right, I feel like we end up wasting a lot of mental energy, because we end up following the thoughts emotionally and wasting emotional energy on the thoughts instead of separating from them and watching the thoughts, so that we don't waste the energy on it, and we can learn to then pick and choose what we put our focus on, whether it's in the moment experiencing happiness, or whether it's a specific thought that we want to focus on that train of thought, so that we can build something creative and make something new. But when you learn to separate yourself, you gain a lot of control over your focus, and you gain a lot of ability to choose for yourself exactly what you want to experience and how you want to experience it, and exactly what kind of intention you're going to put into it. That intention has a lot to do with the outcome. You can't control the outcome, but I can tell you that the more pure your intention going in, the happier and more caring and compassionate and patient your attention going in, your attention to detail going into the thoughts, the practice, the task, the better the outcome is going to be, and you'll start appearing like you're pretty lucky. All those times in my life, I've had several times in my life where I came across as really lucky, like everything was falling apart, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's all taken off. You know, one of those times I experienced pure luck were the times when I let go of being emotionally attached to my thoughts and put purely caring energy into the tasks that I did, and suddenly the outcomes, which I knew I couldn't control, started to get better and better, and it appeared like luck. It wasn't really luck. It was the fact that I wasn't just doing tasks that needed done. When I did the tasks that needed done, I was fully focused on them, and I was fully intent on the reason, the why, the purpose behind why I was doing it, which was to communicate with others, to help others. The same reason we do these live videos, the same reason we teach the class what to do, to help others find their own character within and build it and mold it to exactly who they are and the best that they can possibly be. And that's what it's really about, right? We're never really in this for the money. The money pays the bills, it keeps the lights on, it keeps us staffed, it allows us to allow other people from our small town here to make a living doing this and helping others. But I mean, anytime we have someone who has financial issues, we always offer with deals, and we've had a few people that we've allowed classes for free and stuff like that. And that's really what it's about, helping those that need help in whatever way that they need help. And that's what we're here for. So even if you're one of those that's like, oh, they're a little bit expensive, well, you know, we have a fund that we made a long time ago that allows us to help out people who are struggling financially and things along those lines. Luck favors the hard workers. There you go. That's right. Not just the hard workers who have the right intention behind their actions, who are doing it for the right reasons. And that's another thing I've learned. Like, I can do the hard work, but if I fight the flow and I don't really want to be doing it, it doesn't come out right. But if I do the hard work, but I'm in it, I'm zoned in it, and I'm doing it for what feels like the right reasons, and my brain and my heart and my intuition, my emotions are all together on that task, then the luck comes out of nowhere, right? And it just start getting lucky. On top of that, what I've noticed is when I get to that point mentally, when I can separate myself like that mentally, and my brain, my emotions, my intuition are all kind of working at the same time, I find myself unreasonably happy sometimes. Like, I'll just laugh at ironies, right? Something bad will happen, like that bad review we got, and I'll just laugh. Like, it's funny to me, you know, the irony of the situation. It just becomes hilarious. And when I'm in that zone, life is so much more enjoyable. So I kind of strive to find and maintain that zone wherever possible. But again, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy at all. It requires, like martial arts, it requires a lifetime of practice and training, physically and mentally, to get it. But I'm just trying to give you guys an overview. Maybe it's a place or an outline of a path that you can walk down yourself. Everybody's path is different, that maybe help take some control back in your life and things along those lines. So, Axel, did you have anything else you wanted to say before we finish?
No.
Kids don't require a lot. I mean, they require a lot of money from their parents, right? Like, parents have to buy all these things for kids.
Not me.
But kids don't require a lot of money. Yeah, you've never really been like that too much. But kids don't require a lot of money themselves to be happy. Does having a lot of money make you happy?
Not really.
Well, but you always know that you have enough to get basically whatever thing that you need, and so you don't worry too much about wants, and you still have enough left over to do some things you want, like you got this thing the other day, right? So, do you find it that's true, that happiness doesn't necessarily have to do with how much money you have, but it has to do with whether your desires meet the money you have? You have enough money to meet your desires? And kids have fewer financial desires. So do you find that to be true?
Yeah, I found that to be true.
Because by all means, for a kid, you got a lot of money. You've made a lot of money with your business. But, in the big grand scheme of things, you really don't have a lot of money. But does that bother you? No, probably not, because you feel like you have enough to handle anything you need, right? And that's kind of the thing I'm talking about here, right? So happiness doesn't have to come from having more or chasing the next best experience. Happiness is what's left when you let go of everything else. Happiness comes when you learn to enjoy less, meaning enjoy the experience of wind on your skin, enjoy the sound of the crickets, enjoy the feeling of sitting around reading with your family, enjoy those little things. And then when you have those moments, stop thinking about what you have to do tomorrow. Stop thinking about the bad things that happen today, and try to focus on what it feels like to just be in that experience, in that moment. It's pretty life-changing. You can learn to practice this at all times. So until we see you guys again, be the best. Oh, I'm sorry.
You say the first
No, you say. Oh, I say.
You say the first part, I say the last part.
All right, so be the best teammate you can be.
Be the best at being you.